And so without further ado, let me turn it over to David Beckmann. Thank you.
Thanks to Jonathan, and thanks to all of you. This is a room full of leaders in what the world is doing to reduce hunger. And so I am just thrilled to have this opportunity to talk with you. Bread for the World organizes advocacy, mainly with the US Congress. And so what I'd like to do is talk about 3 advocacy tasks that we need to be involved in together, and then just briefly talk about God and how all this relates to God. I find it just tremendously exciting to see what our country has been able to do over the last 5 years to support progress against world hunger. This did begin in 2008 when there was a surge in basic grain prices coupled with the financial crisis. And so you had a lot more people, nobody knows how many, but maybe as many as 200 million more people were driven into hunger. And when the Obama administration came to office, you may remember they had quite a few things to deal with, but they focused also on this world hunger crisis. They moved really quickly using the World Bank to support what the affected countries were trying to do. And then in 2009, at President Obama's first G8 summit, he came with a commitment to increase US investment in agriculture in low-income developing countries. And even more importantly, he mobilized the whole G8 for a much larger global commitment of support to low-income developing countries that were trying to do the right thing. The US part of this global effort has really been extraordinarily effective. From the very beginning, Secretary Clinton and Raj Shah were clear that this wasn't just going to be the government, but that we were going to try to mobilize our whole society. And so right at the start, there were meetings with business leaders, lots of meetings with NGOs, so that to try to engage our whole society in supporting a reversal of the increase in hunger that had taken place. The Civil Society Action Plan that was released last night is a really good plan. And Jonathan and Jada had much more patience with civil society than I did. You know, listening to civil society takes time, and they did it, but the result was a higher quality plan for how we are together going to move forward. This week, the administration will also release AID's new nutrition strategy. I am really excited about that because we know better how to reduce malnutrition among kids than we did just a few years ago. And so in this nutrition strategy, the US government is looking at an array of ongoing programs to figure out how to use those resources to do more to reduce the scourge of child malnutrition. What's happened is that spike in world hunger, in fact, has come down, and that the world has resumed its progress toward the end of hunger. Now, I don't think Americans know about this. A lot of people know that our country played a leadership role in bringing the AIDS pandemic under some kind of control. But people do not know that our country has helped to reduce world hunger. Congress has funded this program on a bipartisan basis, but they will not maintain the funding. They will certainly not increase the funding as they should, unless all of us find ways to work together to tell the American people that we have done something that we can feel really good about ourselves for. we've helped to reduce world hunger. Now, a second advocacy task is even more urgent, and that has to do with food aid reform. I think everybody in this room knows that U.S. food aid does a great deal of good in the world. But we also know that this program could be much more effective. It is not smart, it is not up to date to require that all the food be shipped from the U.S. to the other side of the world. And it is certainly not smart to require that it be shipped on by those few shipping companies that are U.S. flag carriers. They are less efficient, more expensive than other shipping companies. President Bush started the process of trying to reform U.S. food aid. President Obama has proposed more ambitious reforms. In last year's Farm Bill debate in the House, we came very close to getting House approval for the Royce-Engels amendment, a bipartisan amendment that would have gone further than President Obama's proposal to make food aid more effective, more efficient, more up-to-date. But then this year, we failed by 2 or 3 votes. But then this year, the shipping companies have pushed back. So we got some additional flexibility in the Farm Bill. But then in other legislation, Congress decided to increase payments to this handful of shipping companies and to take that money from food for hungry people. So net this year, Farm Bill and this other legislation, we have lost food for 1.4 million desperate people every year going forward. I find this I'm a pretty moderate guy, but this is outrageous. This is just outrageous. And then 2 weeks ago, the House passed a Coast Guard bill that would further increase the subsidies to those same shipping companies, and it would reduce the reach of U.S. food assistance by another 2 million people a year. Whether you work on food aid or not, we have got to stop this. This is a room full of people who know how to work Congress. Anybody who lives in this country can call your senator, and you will make a difference. But some of you have personal contacts in those offices. The immediate thing is that the Senate needs to stop the House Coast Guard bill. But then we've got to push back. And so we need to tell our senators and our members of the House that we want them to pass reform along the line of what the president's asked for or what Chairman Royce and Ranking Member Engels asked for. This is doable, it's winnable, and we've got to win it. Let me make one other advocacy point. I'll come around on the outside maybe. This is a longer-term challenge, but it is even more ambitious. I think we should try to make hunger and poverty a national priority for the United States. We can all be really encouraged by the fact that the world as a whole has made dramatic progress against hunger, poverty, and disease. And it's happening in all kinds of countries. Countries as different as Bangladesh and Mozambique or Brazil. Great Britain has reduced child poverty. So we know that with some effort, we can virtually end extreme poverty and hunger by 2030. Now, U.S. leadership really is crucial. Political leadership everywhere is the bottleneck, but political leadership in this country is especially important. And I think we're not going to get our country to do a whole lot more to provide opportunity for people all over the world unless we can also get our country to do more to provide opportunity for people who are struggling in our own communities. In 2008, the number of people in this country who are food insecure jumped by 40%. These are households that run out of food at the end of many months. It jumped by 40%, and we have not reversed the spike in hunger in America. Many American families, probably most American families, are still struggling in this economy. What encourages me is that politicians, Democrats and Republicans, are talking much more about poverty and opportunity than they have for decades. And so I think it's really possible to imagine that in January 2017, the next president of the United States is going to say it's time for us to get serious about hunger and poverty. We're going to have open primaries on both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, so we'll have a robust discussion about what our priorities are as a nation are, and we can get to the point where hunger and poverty is important to both the President and Congress of the United States in 2017, so that then the two parties are just talking about how to get it done, how best to get it done, not whether to pay attention to people who are hungry and poor. And our people are generous, they're idealistic, so if we can get back to a point where Americans feel that this is a land of opportunity for Americans, then I think Americans will also support leadership by our country in making this a world of opportunity for everybody. Now, God. I believe in God. And so, when I see hundreds of millions of people escaping from extreme poverty around the world, I think this is God. This is God. This is our loving God moving in our own time. And I think the fact that we can virtually end extreme poverty and hunger, this is God's invitations to all of us, to people all across this country, to people all around the world to get with the program. It is a great liberation. In my mind, it's an exodus, something like the Exodus, much bigger, and God's inviting us to be part of this exodus from hunger.